Hello and welcome to this vodcast on foundation years. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of baby rooms for brain development and how you as educators can make a real difference through fostering positive interactions and relationships with babies in your setting. I'm very happy to be joined by two speakers, Melanie and Natasha, who I'll let introduce themselves. Melanie, would you like to start?
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I'm a development manager working at the Blackpool Centre for Early Child Development, and that's the research and development hub of the NSPCC-led Blackpool Better Start Partnership. So I've got a background in the NHS for nearly 20 years before coming to the Centre for Early Child Development, and in the NHS I was a registered children's nurse and then a health visitor.
And I'm Natasha. I'm a development support officer, again, at the Blackpool Centre for Early Child Development. I've been working with early years settings and SEND education for over 20 years now. I started as an apprentice in a nursery, so I've got a real practical understanding of what it's really like working with children and families. I'm hoping to share some of my experiences with you today so that I can support you and others who work within the early years sector.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So as we know, an increasing number of babies are splitting their time between home and early years settings. So with that in mind, could you give us an overview of how a baby's environment can impact their early development?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So we know, don't we, that the early years are a time of really fast brain growth. And the science shows us that the experiences of a child and what they have in those first few years, whether that's a positive or negative experience, really shape how their brain grows and develops. So early brain development is the foundation of a child's social, emotional, and physical growth, and as well as affecting their ability to learn. So what that means is that early years educators play a really key role in supporting children's health, well-being and readiness for school. So we know that positive early interactions are crucial for brain development. So when caregivers, such as early educators, respond to a baby's needs, like comforting them when they cry, the baby learns to expect similar responses in the future. So repeated positive experiences really help babies to understand their social and emotional world in a supportive environment. So what that means is they feel safe, curious, eager to learn. But on the other hand, if babies have more negative experiences, then they can start to expect negative responses from others, and then they may view new interactions negatively. So what that means is the baby may then become more fearful or anxious or flat in their responses. So we've got some sort of 4 simple building blocks that a baby's brain growth can be supported by. So I think it'd be good to chat through those now. So number 1 is being attentive and responsive. So the way a baby communicates is not only always obvious and can be really challenging for educators and carers to identify and respond to, especially when things are busy and the environment's busy. So early educators can help babies to feel safe and understood by observing those nuances, those non-verbal cues, and then respond to them. So babies can tell us how they feel if we know how to observe and to listen to them. So Natasha, from your experience, why is being attentive and responsive so important for early educators?
Well, you're right, Melanie. It is so important. When we're attentive and responsive, we're giving eye contact, we're turning towards the baby, we're often leaning in closer so that they can see our friendly facial expressions. And it can be as simple as being interested, watching them, wondering what they're doing, what they're thinking and what they're feeling. So when we're doing those things, we're developing something called attuned interactions. Early years educators are masters of attuning to babies that they care for, and often that's more than one baby at the same time. And all that means is that we are receiving the baby's interaction and then we're responding appropriately. And that is so impactful on their early development.
Oh, thanks for that, Natasha. Yeah, so thinking we've spoken about the first building block, so moving on to the second, this second building block is cuddling babies and helping them feel safe. So that's really important. That consistent and loving interactions helps babies feel so secure, and it really builds trust. So babies are born with this internal drive to connect and maintain closeness with familiar people. And the same is true when they attend early years settings. They really want to connect and have an early years educator who cuddles them and helps them to feel safe. So, whether babies' early relationships are largely positive or negative, significance their ability and impacts their ability to manage stress. So, we know that stress can be especially have an adverse effect on baby brain development. So, when babies and young children have these positive early experiences, then that helps them to develop emotionally secure attachments with their caregivers, and that can buffer that stress. So we've looked at two of the building blocks. So the third one is playing with babies. So it's through positive interactions and play that babies learn how to interact with other people, and that really supports their brain development further. So there are lots of free resources that people such as early years educators can access to help support baby brain development and give them ideas of how to play with babies. So one of these is our NSPCC Look, Say, Sing, Play. They're resources which really focus on what babies need to help build their brains, and anyone can sign up for the free weekly tips.
Yeah, I will never stop talking about the impact of play. When we play with a baby, we are helping them learn and giving them opportunities to learn from us. The early years educators who are providing really rich play experiences for babies are helping them learn by supporting and expanding on their interactions and reactions.
Yeah, thanks, Natasha. So the fourth building block is talk and sing to babies. So that builds on what we've just been saying, and thinking again about positive interactions such as talking, singing, playing with babies really helps support and build healthy brain development. So there are activities and interactions that encourage babies to explore and learn about their environment, and engaging in conversations, even if the baby cannot respond yet, supports their language development. So that means keeping that eye contact, allowing for those back and forth interactions, and including to responding to the baby by mimicking their sounds, because that helps them feel heard. What are your thoughts, Natasha?
I totally agree. That back and forth serve and return interaction is really, really important. We're actively listening to the baby's sounds, and we're waiting for them to move and react to our actions and the tone and intonation in our voices. We often hear the term baby voices, and for a lot of new early years educators and parents alike, we feel a bit silly and a bit embarrassed using a baby voice, but we know babies respond really, really well to this. And like you say, Melanie, talk is key. And again, some early years educators and parents can find this a little bit difficult. As practitioner, I've often heard, well, they can't understand me yet, but actually what you're doing and talking about how you're feeling and thinking out loud really encourages initiatives and interactions from a baby, and the baby knows that the caregiver is really interested in them. And as well as encouraging positive interactions, we need to receive interactions positively. And again, it comes back to that serve and return. So showing that you're listening and have noticed a baby's communication attempt is really important. Smiling and nodding in response to baby's verbal and non-verbal cues is key, and talking about what they're doing supports the baby to fire up those connections in the brain.
That's fantastic information. Thank you. Now, obviously, every baby is unique and will communicate differently. So what are some of the common baby states and cues that educators should be aware of?
Yeah, so let's say we all know that babies don't come with an instruction manual, but what we do know is they work so hard to tell us what they need. All of their little behaviours are communication. So, an important part of learning about babies is recognising and responding when they're ready to play, sleep, cuddle, rest, or feed. So, babies go through different states and stages of sleepiness and wakefulness throughout their day. And these are what's called states. So there's actually 6 baby states that we know about. And if we can learn about these, it can really help us when caring for babies. So that can help parents, carers, or early educators understand what their baby might need. So let's think about what these six states are. I think it'd be good just to outline them. So they are deep sleep, light sleep, drowsy, quiet alert, unsettled alert, and crying. So, depending on a baby's state, a carer, such as an educator, might need to soothe them, or they might need to think, oh, I'll switch to a different activity, or they might want to play with the baby. So, people listening to this podcast can access more in-depth information about what each state looks like and what are the best ways to respond to each state in resources that will be posted, such as Getting to Know Your Baby. But I think if we just bring to life a couple of the states, it might be helpful. So the first one, deep sleep. So when a baby's in this state, what does that look like to the carer? So a deep sleep state, their baby's breathing will be steady and regular. Their eyes are closed, and they lie still. And although they're still, they might not be still the whole time. So they might do little startles or jerks, or they might have sucking movements. But when a baby's in a deep sleep, it's really difficult to wake them. And what's really important to sort of consider is that babies do their growing during deep sleep. So how as carers or educators or parents might respond to this is they would try not to wake a baby in a deep sleep. So if we then move to another one of the states, just to think about what that might look like, we can look at quiet alert. So what does this look like? A baby might be have their eyes wide, they'll be alert, they're ready to focus, and they'll really be interested in your face, your voice, or a moving object. And they might lie still, and they might smile and babble. So how we might respond when a baby's in a quiet alert state is this is a time when a baby's ready to play or have a feed or just enjoy having your company and getting to know each other. What's your thoughts on that, Natasha?
Yeah, sorry. This for me is where I think early years educators gain their superhero capes because, like you mentioned, Alex, babies all communicate differently. And whilst we do consider the common baby states and the cues, we are also attuning to the individual cries, gurgles, and nonverbal communication cues of each baby that we're caring for. So, for example, you know that when baby Sophie puts her hand in her mouth, she's hungry, or when Jack kicks his feet and he's getting red in the face, he wants to change position or wants to stand up with your support. And those are the things that you learn over time. We draw on our training and our understanding of child development, as well as following babies' usual individual routines and remembering the information that's been shared with us from families that we've worked in partnership with. So we do have a lot to think about. But it's really important to be aware of the common stages, the cues, and the individualities so that we can ensure that the baby's needs are met. A baby who has their needs met is less stressed, feels loved and cared for. And what we do know is that a positive, nurturing, and stimulating environment really supports healthy brain development.
Thanks, Natasha. So we've been able to share some insights today, haven't we, about the importance of positive interactions on babies' brain development. So some of the takeaways, I think, from what we've been sharing are, number one, the early years of life are a really critical period for babies' brain development. Number 2, that positive experiences and interactions really help build strong and healthy brains. And what that does is lay the foundations for future growth. And number 3, when babies and young children have positive early relationship experiences, they can develop emotionally secure attachments with their caregivers, such as early years educators, and that can really help buffer stress. And then number 4, understanding baby states and how to respond to each of the different states are vital skills for our early educators.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was incredibly informative. And thank you for explaining everything for us. If you'd like to learn more about babies' brain development, there are going to be a number of resources linked under this vodcast, which I highly encourage you to take a look at. I'd also recommend you watch the second part of this vodcast series, where we will be discussing how to recognize the cause of a baby's distress and how you as educators can help to soothe them. Thank you very much for listening.